So hi everyone, this is my very first commentary, and I've already fucked up the first line. So hi everyone, this is my first ever commentary. I had a few videos in store that I wanted to do that were older, however I decided to roll the dice and maybe try for something newer. Today I want to talk about the recent video Just a Robot 2 posted called Rick and Morty is Stupid and Dan Harmon Doesn't Understand Politics. Before we begin, let me just say, I only watch the show occasionally. I like it, I think it's funny, has some great emotional moments, really interesting philosophies, intriguing characters, and a nice healthy sense of cynically dark humor. While I admit it can be flawed, as not all things are perfect, and the fandom can be completely and utterly insane at times, there are some things in this video I believe need some clarification, and would be fun to talk about.
That's a minority! We can beat them! Probably my favorite trilogy from the 80s is Back to the Future. So you can imagine my excitement when I saw the trailers for Rick and Morty. I have enjoyed the show all 3 seasons, although the animation did take some time to get used to. Why do their pupils look like that? No one knows! If anything, it probably takes more time and money to make them look like that. I do find the show a lot funnier than, say, Family Guy with its constant cutaway gags. I'm just really sick of adult cartoons taking place in the suburbs of middle-class America. It's a cartoon, you can put it in whatever setting you want. But unfortunately, like all popular cartoon shows, this one got a giant rabid fan base. And similar to the Steven Universe fan base, it's pretty easy to see why. In fact, even easier to see why. The show was almost designed to suck in teenagers with superiority complexes, and make them even more full of themselves than they already are. Just check out this clip where Rick is talking to his daughter.
Am I evil?
Worse, you're smart. When you know nothing matters, the universe is yours. And I've never met a universe that was into it. The universe is basically an animal and grazes on the ordinary. Creates infinite idiots just to eat them. Not unlike your friend Timmy.
Tommy.
Yeah, hardly matters now, sweetie. You know, smart people get a chance to climb on top, take reality for a ride, but it'll never stop trying to throw you. And eventually it will. Okay, first of all, what Rick said doesn't actually make very much sense if you actually think about it.
While I agree with the whole you gotta be smart to understand Rick and Morty thing is dumb and annoying, how does what Rick said not make sense? You kinda just say that it doesn't without pointing out why. In my opinion, it's actually quite interesting. What he's talking about is the other side of the phrase, ignorance is bliss, the belief that being dumb leads to a happier life than being intelligent. Intelligence can be depressing because while Beth questions whether or not she's a good person or not, or while others worry about what's right or wrong, Rick, who is presumably the more intelligent of the two and could give less of a shit otherwise, doesn't care, because he knows death is inevitable and it won't matter regardless. The show often delves in the mentality of nihilism, which is expressed in this situation, that there is freedom in being smart enough to know nothing truly matters.
And second, I know there's some teenager with a superiority complex watching this thinking to himself, oh my god, I totally relate to this! Now, Rick and Morty fans, I know you think you're smart like Rick, but the thing is, what makes him smart is inventing things such as portal guns, not running around saying wubba lubba dub dub and pickle Rick. But it's not like the guy who made the show tried to ever compare himself to Rick and gave Rick the same mental disability he has.
While I get what you're saying here, it isn't uncommon for the creator of a character to make them have similar personalities. It happens all the time, sometimes consciously or unconsciously. Whether it's because they're easy to write when it's basically you, or because you do it unknowingly. Is it egotistical to make a character that is so similar to you and name that character the smartest in the universe? Yeah. Is it uncommon? No.
Is this game popular with autistic people? Why would you say something like that? Because I'm starting to love it. But hey, that's only one example of self-insert. It's not like there's a female Asian writer who wrote a female Asian character that totally owned Rick in an argument, then went on to brag about how her self-insert totally destroyed Rick, even though it only worked if he acted out of character. Oh wait, that actually happened.
Again, not uncommon to insert yourself or another person into a piece of media. Happens all the time, especially in cartoons.
I found prints! No, fingerprints! I don't think so.
And that is not what that article you posted and didn't link says. She never claimed to own Rick. The point of her character was to provide an opposition to Rick. You see, one thing that people almost never acknowledge is that there are different types of intelligence. Being the kind Rick does, science and mathematics, and the kind the therapist does, which is emotional. Emotional intelligence and the idea of emotion in general is often seen as something unnecessary or worthless by people such as Rick, primarily because it's not something you can physically study. This is especially seen in Season 3, Episode 6, when Rick and Morty get everything they dislike about themselves, such as Morty's constant anxiety and self-hate and Rick's massive ego, into the form of toxin, which gain form and chase them down later in the episode. One major way they defeat their toxic versions is by hurting toxic Morty that gets toxic Rick's attention and makes him surrender. This means that Rick thinks that emotions such as love and care are worthless. He hates the fact that he cares about his grandson, or for his family, because, like many, he thinks they make him weak. The whole point of the therapist scene was to bring up a question that's been asked all over the show, that being, is it worth being the smartest man alive if you can never be happy? That's why it states in the screenshot you showed, yeah, you're smarter than me, but you are a tragic figure. He is the smartest man in the universe. He can bend time and space with a yawn or break the fabric of existence with a twitch of a pinky. But because he doesn't understand or appreciate emotional intelligence and doesn't express kindness or love freely, he will always also be the saddest man in the universe.
Now, the Steven Universe fanbase has done some pretty messed up stuff, but at least they never started a public riot at McDonald's. And they did this multiple times, all for just some pack of Szechuan sauce that, from what I've heard, doesn't really taste all that great. The guy who made Rick and Morty actually had the audacity to say that McDonald's should pay him royalties for free publicity.
Yeah, the riots at McDonald's were quite ridiculous, but again, that's not what it shows in your screenshot. It seems like he's just making an apology rather than being a prick and being asked to be paid advertising royalties. He literally says that the integration was done poorly and that the situation was awkward and embarrassing.
Honestly, I think McDonald's should sue him for all the property damage.
Technically they can't, because he didn't ask the fandom to attack them. They just made a dumb joke about it, and then the fandom decided to pull a stupid.
I heard one of the Rick and Morty fans actually sold their car for a packet, but I don't know if this is true for sure. But if it is true, it is possible he was on some type of drug that made him do it. Now, this was somewhat McDonald's fault for only sending 10 packets of Szechuan sauce per location. The most famous of these rioters was Pickle Ree.
Wait, you got no Szechuan sauce? No. I want Szechuan sauce! Where's my Szechuan sauce? I'm Pickle Rick! I'm Pickle Rick!
He quickly became the face of the Rick and Morty fanbase. Or at least the bad part of the Rick and Morty fanbase. But the thing is, this guy was doing it as a Filthy Frank-style joke. There's an interview with him and Monkey Jones, which I highly recommend you check out.
Seems like you're going a bit off topic. In fact, why bring up the fandom if you said the show itself is stupid? Actually, what does this have to do with the show or Dan Harmon? Or was this title just a clickbait tactic?
But despite all of that, I'm going to be looking forward to Season 4 of Rick and Morty. Hopefully the fanbase won't go nuts again. Now, there is one more thing about the guy who made Rick and Morty that I wanted to talk about, but I decided to leave the best part for my animator to cover. His name is Socraturtles. He is extremely underrated. Please go check him out. His channel will be linked down below.
Oh boy, this was my favorite part of the video.
I watched the first 2 seasons of Rick and Morty and I thought they were pretty good, despite Rick being a giant Gary Stu.
'Tis was kind of the point, my good sir. He is presumably the smartest man in the universe. What does he have to lose if he decides to be the biggest prick of it as well?
For example, not only is he so smart that he's able to outsmart multiple versions of himself, which are each the smartest people in their own universe.
Actually, no, that's not how that works. You see, Rick and Morty run on the Everett's interpretation of quantum mechanics theory, which is a theory where there are multiple universes, but they all have small variations, meaning each Rick and Morty have different levels of intelligence that rival the others. You see, the Rick we follow is the Rickest Rick, which means he is the most intelligent of all the other parallel dimensional Ricks. There's also Mortiest Morty, which is the one we follow, who presumably is the Morty who has survived the longest with Rick, I suppose. The Rickest Morty, or Evil Morty, who is the most intelligent Morty and is able to rival the Rickest Rick on an even playing field, and the Mortiest Rick, who we either haven't seen or is theorized to be the dumb Rick who has a gap in his teeth, matted hair, and presumably eats his own shit. Yeah, that was a thing they said.
Not only is he so cunning that he's able to outtrick the devil and drive him into suicide, not only is he incredibly agile for a very old man, but also, and I'm not joking, his dick is literally the size of a toddler's arm. And while Mary Sue-type characters can work in gags or parodies, the creators knew that both themselves and Rick and Morty take itself way too seriously and independently to be considered a parody at this point, so they decided to give Rick more personality and make him seem more human in the second season.
First off, where did you get the idea Rick is a Mary Sue? He isn't perfect. In fact, he's an asshole. Also, it was meant to be a parody when it was known as The Adventures of Doc Smith and Marty. Now it's just the fucked up love child of Back to the Future and Doctor Who. And no, he was always quite human and relatable in a way we just weren't aware of. What do I mean by that? Well, it's in his most favorite phrase, wubba-lubba-dub-dub, which he started using in episode 5 of season 1. The reason why is because in the final episode of the same season, it was explained by a bird person that in his language it means, I am in great pain, please help me.
Morty, do you know what wubba-lubba-dub-dub means?
Oh, that's just Rick's stupid nonsense catchphrase.
It's not nonsense at all. In my people's tongue, it means, I am in great pain, please help me.
Well, I got news for you. He's saying it ironically.
No, Morty, your grandfather is indeed in very deep pain. That is why he must numb himself.
Come on,
Bird person.
Come on, bird person. Rick's not that complicated. He's just a huge asshole.
Then why do you care so much if you are no longer allowed to continue on your adventures together? It appears fate has presented you with an opportunity to free yourself of Rick forever.
You know what? You're right. I shouldn't even care. This is probably the best thing that could have happened to me. I'm sick of having adventures with Rick.
My people have another saying, gubba nub nub do raka. It means, whatever lets you sleep at night.
Bird Person explains that Rick and him have had a long history as friends, so it's clear Rick may have picked it up from him. Maybe he was saying it on purpose or subconsciously, but it's clear that Rick has many issues, and this may have been his only way to vent it.
And the way they go about doing this is by making Rick suicidal after he breaks up with a girl. That's right, Rick Sanchez, the same person who not only left his previous universe to a deadly disease that killed all of his family and everyone he knew, only to transport him and Morty to another universe where he had to bury his dead and mangled body without even flinching, is now suicidal just because he broke up with a girl. And what about Rick disliking the idea of love? Why doesn't he just produce a serum or an antidote that reduces the amount of oxytocin in his bloodstream whenever he meets someone that he might like?
Did you even pay attention to the series or what his ex said in the notes she left him?
Hey, Yoon, you got any more? Rick, forgive me for doing this in notes. I'm not strong enough to do it in persons.
I realize now that I'm attracted to you for the same reason I can't be with you. You can't change.
And I have no problem with that, but it clearly means I have a problem with myself. I'm sure there's no perfect version of me. I'm sure I'll just unify species after species and never really be complete. But I know how it goes with us. I lose who I am and become part of you. Because in a strange way, you're better at what I do without even trying. Yours. And nobody else's. Unity.
She broke up with him because they both have the problem of not being able to change and of not being able to ever be satisfied. For her, of who she is because of her ability to change from body to body and being a parasite, and for him of never being able to feel happiness for what he has. Both of them hate themselves. After the realization that he can never be happy or satisfied or whole, he almost commits suicide only to be saved by the alcohol that he's used as an emotional crutch since the first episode.
But that's enough about Dan Harmon, I mean Rick Sanchez. Let's talk about Rick Harmon's Nazi rant.
Ah yes, the one that you suspiciously didn't link in the description of your vid.
And let me tell you, if ever there was an argument for not needing a doctor to diagnose a mental disability, this video would be it.
Hello, thank you! I mean, obviously, it's like, hello, how are you, the usual niceties. I also should add, I'm not a Nazi. Like, that's a new thing that you just add to be...
Oh, this could actually be an intelligent discussion, how in the current state of social media and sometimes the world in general, people who think they're smarter than they really are will try to call others fascists or Nazis without hearing their full point of view.
And then you say, oh, Dan, no, you're pandering, you're virtue signaling, right? Is that what you call it, you fucks?
Yeah. Oh no, I see where this is going. When people say you're virtue signaling, they mean that you're going out of your way to inject politics where it's not needed, by saying things like, hey guys, I'm not a Nazi, did you hear I'm not a Nazi, did you know I'm not a Nazi, hey, you know who's a Nazi, not me, that's for sure, but you know that president guy, and then people say you're virtue signaling.
Actually, no, that's not what that means. It is the action or practice of publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue. Now, that is what he's doing. But maybe it's because he's right-wing and acknowledges that it's something that you have to say nowadays because of extreme liberals. I'm not quite sure, as the show makes fun of and supports ideals from both sides, so I don't know where Dan Harmon lies on said spectrum. He could also be a libertarian or a moderate.
You say you're not a Nazi, and then you get a big bell and a cookie? Because it's so easy to say you're not a Nazi. Well, no, it's not that easy to say, is it? It's not easy to say you're not a Nazi. The president has a difficult time. And he has no repercussions.
Oh, or maybe he has to fear the fact that people will say, oh, you didn't say you're not a Nazi in the right way, therefore you're a Nazi, which is something people actually do.
I think what he's referencing is the issues Trump has had in the past concerning the KKK, such as, supposedly, lying about not knowing who David Duke and what the KKK was when he was asked how he felt about their endorsement of him during the election.
Mark Potok with the Southern Poverty Law Center says racist groups of the past have gotten new life, like it or not, from Trump.
I think from the point of view of the radical right, Donald Trump has been playing a careful little game of footsie with them since the very beginning of the campaign. I think they feel clearly that Trump is essentially on their side, if not precisely holding the same views.
It's been an ongoing problem for Trump, stumbling over questions on how to handle support from known racists.
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on? Because, you know, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
But I guess the question from the Anti-Defamation League is, even if you don't know about their endorsement, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you. Would you just say, unequivocally, you condemn them and you don't want their support?
Well, I have to look at the group.
Trump did eventually go on to disavow Duke, but he's been walking a thin line ever since.
beyond the fact he blamed both sides for the Charlottesville incident when literal white supremacists were rioting in a neighborhood and others came out to defend themselves, and only after receiving backlash for blaming both sides did he come out and claim to condemn all hatred in the nation, of which he honestly should have done the first time. But the tweet that shows someone, quote-unquote, decoding the president's latest tweet on the matter is quite ridiculous and is scraping the bottom of the barrel.
It's to fear, really, except for some Nazis not voting for him. And he has traded that today. He has officially decreed, to the extent that a compulsively dishonest parasite can decree anything, he has decreed that he is a Nazi, because there are people goose-stepping down a main street in the heart of America, wherever the fuck that place is, and it would have been so easy to trade a couple of Nazi votes for what he might have hoped would be a couple of non-Nazi votes. Perhaps the easiest votes to get of all. Simple non-Nazi votes. Low-hanging democratic fruit, it's been called.
Well, if they're so easy to get, then how did he become president? The way Dan acts throughout the entirety of his not a Nazi rant makes it seem like he believed that all, or at least the majority, of Trump's supporters are Nazis. So if non-Nazi votes are so easy to get, then how did Trump become president? Oh, wait, maybe it could be that not everyone that voted for Trump is a Nazi. Oh, no, wait, no. That'll make too much sense.
I think the point he was trying to make is that he shouldn't have had votes from anyone who's also openly racist. May I refer back to the situation with the KKK endorsement? Also, can you speak up a little? You're mumbling a bit and I almost couldn't understand your point.
I promise to not be a Nazi. You're hired these days. He couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to do it. And that is as close as you're going to get with a coward to it saying, I'm a Nazi.
Yes, and you haven't said that you don't hate black people, so why should we believe that you don't hate black people? Oh, right, because guilty until proven innocent isn't a thing that smart people do. And why specifically Nazism? You realize there are a lot of things that are much worse than simply being the National Socialist. For example, raping children, beating animals, and to a certain extent creating pickle Rick. And yet, you don't get on him for not saying that he does any of these, do you? This is why people say you're virtue signaling. Because you specifically point out Nazism because it's the popular thing to hate. In reality, nobody goes into a conversation and starts it off with, hey guys, just so you know, I'm not a Nazi.
It's the fact that he has to say it in the first place that's the problem. Due to things he's done in the past, his lying and lack of clarification on previous events, yeah, people are gonna be a bit wary. Now, do I personally think he's a Nazi? Of course not. I just think he said some dumb stuff in the past. It's hard to say whether I agree with him or not, because he's had a bit of a history of going back and forth, so I don't know what his stance is half the time. And I've disagreed with a lot of stuff he said and done, but do I think he's a Nazi? No.
He said he just wants to be loved. Yeah. By Nazis. And just wanting to be loved is important and human. We all just want to be loved. And the big question is, when you are not loved and a Nazi is across the street going, yoo-hoo, do you go back to being not loved or walk across the street?
Funny that you'd say that, really, considering Trump literally condemned racism of all kind, which, funnily enough, not only pissed off the former Grand Wizard of the KKK, but also people that didn't like Trump because he didn't say he wasn't a racist properly.
It's not the fact that he didn't say he wasn't a racist properly, it's the fact he had to say it in the first place. Most don't have to make a speech about the fact they aren't racist, because it's kinda just implied in the beginning. But if this speech is true and he really means it, then yay! Our president isn't racist! That's always a great thing.
That is what this civil war, and I promise you that's what's brewing, is going to be all about. And it's fucking over. The discourse is over. We have sat, we have talked, we have argued, we have pondered. The discourse is over.
Wait, when you say we, you realize you didn't do any of this. No, you don't discuss, you rant. When someone tells you you're doing something wrong, you go on pages-long Twitter rants because you can't be criticized. Isn't that right, Rick? Sorry, I mean Dan.
Okay, missing context here. What is this person criticizing him for? What are they talking about? What's a bad idea? Are they just being an ass with the drunk comments? I have no idea! Yeah, the multiple comments are rude and unnecessary, but how do we know if this is him being serious or sarcastic? He has been known to have a dark sense of humor. I have no idea because you give no context as to what is even being talked about. Also, yes, he was a part of this because even if you rant, you're still part of the situation and part of the discussion because of the fact that you're talking about it in the first place.
These people that tweet you, when you retweet somebody, when you just say a simple fact that should not cause you to get a knot in your stomach, like, I'm not a Nazi?
Oh, you mean like when someone sent their harmless opinion to you that shouldn't get your stomach in a knot?
Again, no context. What the hell are they talking about?
And then you send dozens of tweets to them saying that they're garbage, and that they're worthless, and that their mother is ashamed of them, and possibly threatening them.
Okay, that one legit seems to be a joke on the fact that the person stated they were afraid of being teased if they tweeted him. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I don't know if this is a joke or not. In fact, I have no idea what's going on, because again, no context.
And yes, he was drunk when he tweeted these, but when he was sober, he mentioned that he didn't really care about what he had said. Yeah, nice going, Dan. You really showed that 100-follower Twitter account his boss when he tweeted his harmless opinion to you.
What was the opinion? This shows nothing as to what was talked about. Also, wow, way to go out of your way to make him seem worse than he is. He says right there that he is scared that he feels no remorse, and he thinks it's better to at least make an effort to be polite. And yes, it is possible to feel bad about the fact you don't feel bad. Similar to how some people will think of themselves as bad people because they don't feel sympathy towards another person when they're crying or having a hard time. He doesn't feel remorse for what he did. Yes, but he still acknowledges that what he did was wrong. In fact, if that picture Jar put up is true and Dan Harmon does in fact have autism, then something like this isn't out of the ordinary. According to WebMD, autistic people have a difficult time understanding emotions, showing how he may have trouble feeling remorse, and that they often don't have very good social skills. So maybe this was a result of that.
The people that tweet you and say, nor am I, but just out of curiosity. Just tell them to go fuck themselves, the discourse is over, the war.
Seriously? So people can't even question your thoughts, even if they do as you say and say they're not a Nazi? And I like the way you try to present them as the bad people, even though they're clearly being polite in the situation. Wait, hold on. Not only do you not want to hear opposing viewpoints, and you get mad when people show opposing viewpoints, but you also try to suppress opposing viewpoints through the use of violence and mockery. Hold on, that reminds me of a certain authoritarian dictatorship. Hold on, wait. I think... Oh no, well, I can't think of it right now, but I'm sure when I do remember I'll tell you, and I'll be sure to tell you that, I'm not whatever that is, just in case I don't get knifed like you insinuate people should do later on in this video.
Literally not the point he was making. What he's saying is that there's no point in arguing against people who don't want to hear your point of view. He explains it later on. Also, how do you know if they're the ones being polite in this situation? You don't show a clip of him talking to someone or anything, you just make this claim with no evidence.
Has begun. You're not talking to Nazis anymore. You're not talking to people that want to entertain the notion of being a Nazi anymore. You don't want to talk to people that want to circumscribe the concept of Nazism within a fucking Socratic dialectic about goddamn whether Nazi. They're fucking Nazis. It's the bedrock of humanity. It is so low that the worst people in the world find it.
Nice job putting this in the vid without mentioning the fact he was later forgiven when he did a whole apology segment on one of his podcasts of the woman he harassed. I know it was meant to be a joke, as he states in the comment section, but it's not. You made a claim with no other context. That's like someone alluding to someone they don't like being a pedophile because he was making a kid show and doubting his identification of being asexual in a completely monotone voice so no one could tell if they're actually being serious or not. But who would do that? Again, that's not a joke. Now, I put an article about it in the description, and I'm not saying that what he did was okay because, and this shouldn't be a surprise, but sexual harassment is illegal and morally wrong. However, it has been resolved, and the two have made up.
And that's where they rally. And it's so low, we have gotten so bad that a third of our country has gotten there. 29% of the people are fucking Nazis.
Whoa, I'm gonna need a citation on that, my man. Oh, wait, sorry. Hold on. I'm not a Nazi, but could I have a citation on... Wait. I'm not a Nazi, and I hate Donald Trump. But can I... No, that's not... I'm not a Nazi, and I hate Donald Trump, and white people. So, can I have a citation on that claim?
Here you go. It's in the description. And also, he's wrong. It's not 29%. It's only 9%.
Is that enough or will I still get blocked?
Ah, don't worry. You won't be blocked. Because it's all gone. For an arguably dumb reason.
Let's face it, that's a minority. We can beat them.
Yep, and that's going at the start of the video.
We have to say, I'm not a Nazi, though. 2/3 of the country just don't want to be political. It's not politics. Just say you're not a Nazi.
Remember when Casey Neistat said to call out YouTubers who wouldn't discuss their politics? That was really dumb.
Agreed, but that's not the same thing. As strange as it is to walk up to people and ask if they're a Nazi, it shouldn't be an issue to say you aren't. But people have the right to not talk about which side of the political spectrum they're on.
It's like taking a shit! You just do it! Or you explode! You die if you don't shit, and you die if you don't say you're not a Nazi!
Oh, hell yeah, kill people that disagree with you. Not a lot of people know what a Nazi is, and by saying that it's okay to kill Nazis, people aren't going to go after actual 1488 Stormfront Nazis, they're going to go after people who just disagree with them politically. And in both cases, killing people over political disagreements is just retarded.
I don't think he's saying to kill people because they're Nazis. Pretty sure he's being hyperbolic. I mean, he did just compare the whole situation to taking a shit. Also, really? Most people don't know what a Nazi is? In the US? You do know World War II is taught in high school, right? That's like using the excuse that you don't know the N-word is racist. It's everywhere in history class when you get to the stuff around America's creation and rise to being an independent nation. Also, no people won't go out and kill others just because they are of different opinion. They won't kill each other because it's fucking illegal!
Fascism is a fucking cancer! It will eat your country unless your country kills it! Here's what happens when you get cancer! Nothing good! Nothing! There is no way out of it! I'm your country's doctor! You've got cancer! You have fascism! You are going to suffer! You are going to fight! You are going to feel pain! You are not getting out of this! We have fascism! It is happening! We're fucking dead, maybe! Or maybe they're dead! That's about it! It's not a continuum! There's no gray area! It's not a
into it. It doesn't respond to love. It doesn't respond to hate. It doesn't respond to ignoring it. It doesn't respond to timeouts. It doesn't respond to attention. It doesn't respond to lack of attention. You stab it. You cut it out. You bombard it with poison. Or you die, and in any case, you will probably die. Don't die talking to cancer. Don't die hanging out with it. Don't die arguing with it on Twitter. It's fucking fascism. Enough. Team up. Stop bitching about Bernie Sanders. I don't care what flavor you want your democracy to be. It's democracy versus motherfucking fascism. You can be as Bernie as you want. You gotta do it later, man. You gotta do it fucking later. You gotta do it later.
If your beliefs are correct, then you'll know that they're correct by knowing what's incorrect and why it's incorrect and why you're correct. But if your beliefs are incorrect, then you won't know that they're incorrect until you actually discuss it with someone else. That's why discussion is necessary for the advancement of civilization, because people biologically just like to be right. That's why many don't second-guess themselves, even if what they're doing is blatantly incorrect. And by saying that you don't want to have a discussion with someone, and by resorting to violence, you're proving that you're too scared of being wrong, which, in that case, you're probably wrong.
That is true. However, the problem he's referring to is an explanation from his previous point from when he said the war has begun. Fascism means a political philosophy, movement, or regime, such as that of the fascists, I'm not sure, that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Keyword being forcible suppression of opposition. People who support fascism aren't looking for a conversation. They aren't looking for other answers. They don't care if you agree or disagree, so the endeavor becomes pointless. When people refuse to discuss points, either separation or fighting is then inevitable. That's what he was talking about. People who are extreme left or right have a bad mindset of their right and your wrong mentality and care for action to make a point because discussion appears useless to them. If a person refuses to learn, then they won't. That's what he was talking about before. So what are my final thoughts? I personally think this video had a couple of valid points, but after Socraturtle came in, it kinda went downhill from there. I personally don't know if Dan Harmon is a good person or not. He came off as very harsh in the I'm not a Nazi rant video, but that might be him being hyperbolically cynical, as his sense of humor can be rather dark. If he is being serious, then I'd have to rewatch it under that new mindset. From what I've researched about him, he's done some bad things, but my hope is always that maybe even the worst of people can change for the better. He's got talent in comedy and writing, but that doesn't give people the excuse or right to harm others. Does that make the things they did forgivable? No, but I would also like to believe it's better than nothing. Call it ignorance, call it goodwill, I don't care. Just a robot. This is a message to you. Sorry, Socraturtle, but I'm not that knowledgeable of your content. I've seen you make some great videos that were well-researched with good points in the past, and this one just seemed poorly done. Not only did neither you or your guests seem to know that much about the material, you both also seem to take a lot of stuff out of context or flip the words to your narrative. Also, your lip sync is like a second behind. And just a little advice, it might be best to not have your guests be in the video more than you. I mean, one of the greatest things about collabs is that you get to see how people work off of one another. That's what the fans want to see. They want to see how you would react to this person, talk to this person, and so on and so forth. And it kind of just seems like you're playing more hot potato with the topic rather than interacting with one another. Just a suggestion. And what does Trump's views on gay people have anything to do with any of this? You may want to work on your citations on where you got your info, because apparently linking where you got the knowledge of Rick's dick size is more important than the video you were actually talking about. I mean, unless, since we're talking about Nazis. I mean, you know that's somewhere on the internet. Maybe Stalin bitch-slapped Hitler because he was cheating on him with Mussolini. Nobody make that a thing. Anyway, hope this video gave another perspective, and please note that I didn't make this to attack you or Socraturtle. I just wanted to add another perspective. I honestly wouldn't mind possibly having a friendly discussion in the future about other possible topics, as you seem more open to differing opinions in comparison to most I've seen in this new heated political climate, or even on YouTube in general. I mean, even I've gone overboard in the past, honestly. I believe most people have, but hopefully coming into the commentary community might open new perspectives to me or something. This was my first commentary, and I hope you enjoyed. If there's anything you'd like for me to talk about, places you can contact me are on my About page. See y'all next time!